Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome to the Mary D Talk Show. To those of you that don't know me, my name is Mary D Welch. I am the host of the Mary D Talk Show, and I'm so happy that you're here today. Today is Monday, July 24th. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm glad you're here. If you're here, if you're a live viewer, thank you, thank you, thank you. You're a replay viewer, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is amazing. The replay viewers, when people call and they tell me that they're a replay viewer, they said, I didn't get to see the show live, but I saw it on the replay. I just want to tell you guys, it matters. It all matters. Don't think it doesn't, because it does. So I wanted to let you know that. And what do I always say on Mondays? It's a beautiful Monday. It is. I look outside, it is gorgeous. So all I can say, those of you that get the text messages, that as far as I'm concerned, every Monday is beautiful. So number one, I want to make sure I thank our sponsors for today's show. And before I get into sponsors, thank you, Oliver. Oliver is our executive producer of the show, and he's also my husband. So thank you, babe. And we have our sponsors for the show that come on, and they have our number one sponsor for the show has been Dumas Martin Jr. with the Idea Club. Dumas Martin, I can't thank you enough. He has been here from day one, and he is still a sponsor for the show, and that is theideaclub.com. If you're looking to start an LLC, a nonprofit, a 501c3, you want to, or an S corp or a C corp, call Dumas. Or go online to theideaclub.com. We also have as a sponsor First Book Academy. If you are looking to write your first book, you go to First Book Academy. If you're looking to publish your first book, you can go to Front Page Publishing. So firstbookacademy.com or frontpagepublishing.com. And just go right there and you get all the help you need. Many people say, oh, I have this idea and you don't know where to start, and you want to go to one of those too. Either one can help you. And last but not least, that's sponsor for the show, we have the Henderson Real Estate Team, the hendersonrealestateteam.info. If you're looking to buy a home, sell a home, you want to contact the Henderson Real Estate Team because they can help you. And they're outstanding young couple that's just phenomenal. So they can help you buy or sell. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are honored today to bring to you an esteemed attorney. Not just, you may say, well, someone just received their law license. No, this is someone that's been practicing for close to almost 50 years. I had the opportunity to speak with her a few minutes before the show, and she said, I believe it was 48 years. We were talking about that. But I will tell you, this lady has so many accolades. She has been a standard in our community. Those of you that don't know, I live in Riverside, California, and that's where she also practices law. But she started out as an English teacher, and I was talking with her about that because I was a history teacher. But she has transitioned into the field of law where she has excelled tremendously. She belongs to numerous organizations in the community. She serves for Riverside. She's a trustee for Riverside Community College. She's also a life member of National NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. She's a life member of that organization, and so many other organizations in our community. I like to welcome to our show because this is a special broadcast today, and the title of the show is When Someone You Love Has Been Arrested. And we welcome today attorney Virginia Blumenthal. There she is. Hi.
Oh, it's good to see you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. I'm glad to have you. We're glad to have you. I know you're a busy lady, but this broadcast is near and dear to many people's hearts. This is one of those, we don't want to talk about it. We don't like to talk about it, but it has become a reality in so many people's lives. And so that's why I thought it was very nice of you to come on and really address this to help what happens when someone is arrested. And not only, in addition to that, I guess how is this, what transition or what, in other words, sometimes people are arrested and then they're on the own recognizance, they're gone. Maybe it's the first offense. How does all these things work? Let me just ask you.
Well, several things. One, if they're arrested, sometimes they're taken into custody, sometimes they're not. If it's a first offense, That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be released. It depends on the seriousness of the accusation.
Got it.
If it's a first offense and they're charged with murder, no, they're not going to cite release them.
Right.
So it depends. One of the first things that I say for anyone and family, when you have a family member arrested, is to keep thy mouth shut. Too many people become motor mouths and don't know, because they don't know the facts or the accusations. They say things that can be taken out of context and used against them.
Right.
And so until more of the allegations are known, I think it's always advisable not to go around talking, both family members and the defendant, and then attempt to get an attorney involved as soon as possible, because they might be able to find out more of the accusations. I keep talking about how many innocent people are arrested, tried, and convicted. And I think we see this all the time when you see on TV somebody's just been released from custody after having been there 10 years, 30 years, because the new DNA procedures have just cleared them.
Right.
And take a look at how many times that happens. Those are all innocent people. And it's amazing how many innocent people are convicted.
Right. Right. Is it are you arrested if it's a misdemeanor versus a felony, or does it
You
matter?
can be. It depends.
Okay.
Sometimes they will give you a site release. For example, there are misdemeanor child endangerments that they're not going to just release you.
Okay.
There are certain misdemeanor sexual batteries that they will probably book you. They might eventually release you on your own recognizance or set a low bail.
Okay. Well, so two things determine what the crime is.
Correct.
Determine
The allegation.
pardon me?
I like to say allegation because I'm not saying a crime's yet been committed.
Okay. So it depends what the allegation is,
Correct.
because you don't know if there's a crime or not, because no one's been convicted of anything.
Correct.
Okay. So what the allegation is will determine whether you are able to be able to have bail set or not.
Correct.
Okay.
And if bail is set, how much?
Okay.
Because they can set bail of $1 million, and most of us can't make that, or they can set bail at 10,000. I mean, there's a big difference in what the bail levels are.
Okay. So if someone, let's say, I'm trying to think of, it could be any kind of crime. Let's say, I would say shoplifting, but someone told me that's not even considered necessarily. It's a ticket if someone's caught shoplifting.
Well, it's still it's a misdemeanor, and it's still considered a crime. Okay. And if you get convicted of a petty theft, that can really hurt you as far as future employment, because it's a theft-related crime.
Right. Are they ever? So someone is if they're arrested, if they're arrested, they have to be booked. Is that it? And then they can be.
No, they can be site released.
Okay. So
they can detain you, technically arrest you at the scene. Let's assume it's a shoplifting, but they will frequently then give you an OTA letter or ticket, order to appear. There's a site release you. It's like getting a traffic ticket, but this is a full misdemeanor.
Okay, and they'll tell them when they have to go to court, or they'll get something in the mail as to when they have to go to court.
One or the other. Usually, there's a date to appear on the citation.
Okay.
And sometimes they may change it because, like during the pandemic time, it took forever to get anything done, and to try to get the police reports to the district attorney's office for them to review to see if they're going to even be filing charges.
Okay. If you're a minor and you receive one of those, do the parents have to come to court with you?
They don't have to. It's recommended. As a minor, because they'll frequently take you in as a minor. But no, you get a citation, you're expected to appear. They do recommend that the parents go, obviously, but the parents don't have to.
If they're, this years and years ago, I worked at juvenile hall. They had a court at juvenile hall. I don't know if they still do that or not.
Yes,
they still do. Okay.
Well, they still have a juvenile court. It is close to juvenile hall, but they've closed down one of the juvenile halls. Actually, they closed down the Riverside Juvenile Hall.
Right.
So they have it in Southwest now and out in the desert.
Okay. Because I know that
you have to go to court in Riverside. It takes quite a process just to get them to court. It takes so long because they're traveling at rush hour times in the morning.
Wow. I know years ago, I just remember that the kids, we'd have to get them ready for court and all those kinds of things. But the
That's
court
right.
was, it was on the premises though. So,
They were right next door to each other.
uh-huh. So it wasn't, they didn't have to go far at all.
Right.
So that they
Well,
could,
and then when they built the new permanent juvenile court,
mhm.
what they did at that time is within a block.
Okay, that they go to. I know too. Let me go to some questions because we may have some. I haven't looked yet to see in the audience if they had anybody have any questions that you'd like to ask. Because I know, oh, you can put this. I know someone may have some, or maybe no, or maybe I'm the only one that has questions. Because this is an area after someone, let me ask you this, after someone is arrested and they, let's say they don't release them, they say maybe there's a, I say maybe a carjacking, I'm just going to use that as an example, and
Okay.
they say no, we're not gonna, you, and you go to court and they say no, we're not going to allow bail. I don't know how does that work?
Well, usually they allow bail unless it's a life sentence, and then it's $1 million bail or no bail. For example, if it's a double homicide or something, and you could get life without possibility of parole, then that is a no bail.
Okay.
The bail is supposed to be an inducement to get you to come to court because you don't want to lose all that money. And what they're saying is that if you're facing life without possibility of parole, $1 million is not a lot of inducement not to go to court.
Yeah, that's true. I see what you're saying. So that it gives a person, if depending on what the crime is, it gives them opportunity to still work and go on with their lives because
Correct.
they haven't been found guilty of anything, one way or the other.
Well, correct. And there's a presumption of innocence. People are presumed to be innocent unless the contrary is proven beyond a reasonable doubt. Because people keep asking me, Virginia, how can you represent these criminals? And I say, wait a minute, I represent the accused.
Right.
And how many of us have been accused of things? I don't mean a crime, but you gave my clothes away, or you told a secret on me, or whatever. You go, no, I didn't. How do you prove you didn't do it? It's very
Mm,
difficult to prove a negative.
that's true. That is
And
very,
all of us have been accused of something.
that's true. That is very true. I know too. Um, and I'm sure you've heard this too about that, having public defenders over a private attorney, that you may or may not receive the same service.
Well, I disagree. The only time you would not receive the same service per se is because they are overloaded with cases.
Okay.
Some of the public defenders I know are some of the finest trial attorneys I've ever met.
Wow.
Because they're a public defender does not mean that they are not an incredible attorney. It just means they don't want to run their own business. And
Okay.
that's okay.
Right. Everybody's got to do what's right for them.
That's
That's
correct.
uh, because now, to my understanding, whether you're a public defender or you're a prosecutor, you're still, well, the taxpayers are still paying those salaries. Let me say that.
That's correct.
So I think sometimes we think there's like different levels of, because they all. This is what I always say. They all went to law school. They had to learn the same law. And it wasn't like they learned a public defender law versus a prosecutor law. And so that's really what it is. So it's just those kind of differences. I think sometimes people think that it's that just more advantageous to have a private attorney as over, like you said, they have so many cases. I have
It
heard
does
people
not mean they're not incredible attorneys. I have great respect for public defenders.
I think we all do because of the volume is what
The
it,
volume, and they're in trials. They know how to litigate. They're incredible attorneys. I would never, ever, ever put one down because they're employed by the government. It's because they don't want to run their own business, and I can't blame them.
oh, it's, I think it's hard to, I mean, it's like anything else, you know, to do that, to own your, anytime you're an entrepreneur, you own your own,
That's right.
you know, that's one of those, it's not easy. Now, I know we spoke briefly about women going into law and that you were the first woman in Riverside County to have to start your own law practice.
I'm the first woman-owned law firm in the Inland Empire. Yes.
Oh, wow. That's even
Yes.
bigger. Wow. That had to
And I
be,
laugh because, as I told you, I laugh because everyone thinks that's a big to do. I really didn't at the time because the only reason I opened up my own law firm is I'm the only one who would hire me because I was a woman, and they would tell me that, Virginia, I'm sure you're going to be a very good attorney. Unfortunately, our clients would never accept a woman attorney. And they would tell you that in those days.
Wow. I don't think
And
they say that anymore. Mm-mm.
no, well, first off, it's no longer lawful. I didn't enjoy hearing it, but I'm glad I heard it because I got the truth.
Right.
Now they could be doing the same things. They're just not going to tell it to you because it's against the law. You can't discriminate on the basis of gender.
And now, aren't there about? I'm just guessing about the same amount of women as men in the field of law. It looks like
Yes, in the field of law. And of course, you're talking about an entire area as far as all different areas of law.
right.
Uh, you still have more male owned law firms than you do women owned law firms.
But as far as like I noticed, I went to it was a swearing in, it was for judges, I think, and there was more women than there were men, which I was surprised. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
So I'm starting. I mean, as far as
We're starting to get it more balanced than what it was, definitely.
yes, and that's always good
And like I
because
said, I tell you, I've been practicing 48 years now, and it was not like that 48 years ago.
well, no, if you're you were the first one in the Inland Empire, just the thought of
Right.
that. You're talking about Riverside and San Bernardino County.
Correct.
I can't even imagine being the first. Was that scary for you?
You know, I can't tell you that I thought about it, just something I did. I kept running into obstacles, but my father always taught me, he was my hero, you can do anything you want to do as long as you work hard enough at it.
Yeah.
And I, when I first started practicing, I took almost any kind of case that walked through the door, but it didn't take me long to realize I loved criminal defense law.
Wow.
And so I went in that direction, and I have done that for the full 48 years.
Wow. I think that you found that sweet spot for you.
Yes, I did. Yeah, and I was very blessed to have found that.
Yes, because everybody does it, but when you do, it's you knew instantly that was it.
Yes, I was in my place.
Oh, good. I know too. Some friends have thought about going to law school. I've encouraged people to go to law school when they say, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do." I said, "Why don't I always say, why don't you try law school?" And I do that because this is what I know about it. There is not one aspect of our society that law doesn't touch.
That's
And
correct.
that's why I encourage it. You cannot go wrong. It doesn't matter your career field. They will always welcome you if you have a law degree. Nobody's going to say, "Well, we don't want you." They're glad to have you. So, but I just encourage them.
Well, it was interesting when I was growing up. I was raised as a military brat. My father was a very decorated war hero in World War II, and then he stayed in the military and eventually retired from the military. I thought everybody moved every 18 to 24 months. I didn't. I didn't know any differently. And so as time goes by, and my parents were the world's greatest prosecution jurors, very conservative, in spite of being, and they were not raised as officers. My father retired as an enlisted man.
Okay.
And one time I was out with my dad, and he ran into one of his good buddies, and they looked at my father and said, "John, how did you ever let your daughter become a criminal defense attorney?" And he looked at them and he got his finger going. And when he started to get that finger going, you knew you were in for something. He says, "Now you listen to me." He said, "I put my life on the line, and my fellow sailors gave their lives for the rights and freedoms that my daughter defends." And I go, "Daddy, you get it." And he the whole way.
Wow, that's wonderful.
It was true. Mm-hmm.
And it is true. And that's what he was saying. And so they were, and for them, well, that you have to remember that at the time, this was.
Well, they passed 8.5 years ago. They have been together 70 years. They were in their 90s, part of that world's greatest generation.
Wow.
And they were.
Wow, that's wonderful. I know we have some comments from our audience. So I see this is Dr. Brewster. Dr. Brewster says, "I know someone who is suffering from severe mental illness and has been jailed for over a year. The person needs mental health services. Is there a process to help this person? This person has severe mental illness."
We do have a mental health court. And if you can get them into mental health and show that the crime with which they are charged is directly related to the mental illness, which usually they are, then you can get the other services. The other thing is that they may not be qualified or be aware enough to even stand a trial. So you call it 1368. In other words, they're saying you're not competent to try a case or be in trial. So then they would end up going to a mental health hospital to be evaluated and so on. There is very definitely mental health court proceedings. It's something that has come into much more of an existence in the last 10 years. Before that, it was not. It
Right.
was kind of like if you needed to go to a shrink, you need to have your head examined. People did not give the credence to mental health issues as they do now.
That's good to know. I hope that helps you, Dr. Brewster. And hi, Denise. How are you? And this is Richard Nichols. This is one of our favorite fans of the show. Hi, Richard. He's here literally every show. I don't think Richard's missed a show. I don't think so. He says hello, Mary. Then he says hello, Attorney Blumenthal. There you go.
Oh, Richard.
And this is Kelly Henry. Kelly, hi. He goes, hi, Mary. Hello, Virginia. And she's an attorney. Hi, Kelly.
Yes, hi, Kelly.
The only reason I didn't ask you, Kelly, because I knew you didn't do criminal defense. That's the only reason. That's the reason. And then she says, oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Denise. But yes, I wanted to make sure I said hi. And Kelly is a member of the National Council of Negro Women. And
very good.
And we've served on the executive committee together. So I can tell you, when I tell you people are involved in the community, so is Denise, by the way. I almost forgot. Denise is too. Hi, she's on the members also. But I thought that hearing from someone that this is your field, like you said, the number one thing you would tell anyone is just keep your mouth shut.
That's correct. Because you don't know what the accusations are, and you don't know how something you say can be taken out of context and used against you or used against your loved one, your family member.
Wow.
It really kind of hurts. And that's why I would get an attorney involved immediately who can try to find out what some of the facts are and who can be there when a statement's being made.
So they can say, yeah, because I know when you watch the movies, they'll say, don't answer that. Or they'll say, they tell you that for a reason.
Information, you need the information first. It's not saying that what you're saying is lying, but
Right.
Sometimes we say it where we're not saying it in the right way. And then it's taken out of context.
Wow. I can understand that. I know too. I don't know if the audience had in, because my questions, well, I guess too, I could ask too, after, let's say the person has been arrested. Now they've been charged. I guess officially charged is when you go, I don't know, what's the
officially charges once what happens is the police reports get submitted to the district attorney's office. They review all the police report and accusations and decide what, if any, charges need to be filed. You draft the complaint, it gets filed in the court. Then when you were released, you were given a date that you had to appear. The charges have now been filed against you. You go to court so you can enter not guilty pleas to all of them.
Got it.
And that's what starts the proceeding for a case.
I've seen too, people have pleaded guilty to whatever the.
Well, they have. It depends on the situation. They may have talked to the DA ahead of time. They worked out a resolution. It may be something that is not a serious allegation, and they believe they're guilty.
Okay, this is the process though, and so it's basically up to the DA to make that decision.
That's correct. And if it's a very serious allegation, they won't let you plead guilty at the arraignment.
Okay.
You need an attorney. I mean, let's assume you're charged with murder. No, you can't go in and plead guilty.
Yes, I understand.
If you have a murder one charge, you can be found guilty of murder one, murder two, voluntary manslaughter, involuntary manslaughter, or not guilty. And those things can be negotiated also. But you don't know anything about the facts. You don't know your legal and constitutional rights or what each of those charges really entails. So they won't allow you to plead guilty.
Well, they know you don't know what you're saying.
That's correct.
You don't really understand what you're looking at. What you're really saying.
Someone, that does not mean it's murder. It does not mean you were wrong. It could be justifiable self-defense.
Right. There's so many different options is what you're saying, but if you don't know any better, you don't know.
Correct. And so they don't allow you then to plead guilty. And sometimes they will have the public defender there to talk to you for a few minutes, appoint them for that. And, to say, no, we're not going to let you do that. There's reasons why. You want to hire your own attorney. You want to have the public defender's office appointed. That's the approach that it takes.
Okay. So automatically, if you cannot afford a private attorney, a public defender is automatically signed your case.
That's correct. Now they do a financial evaluation to be sure that you cannot afford one.
Oh, okay. So I didn't know they even did that. I didn't know what the process was one way.
Fill out financial applications.
Oh, okay. And then they make a determination whether you can afford.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So if someone says, no, my family's going to hire an attorney, then that person would appear in court. I'm assuming is it at the arraignment?
Yes, but what happens is they will not let you do it on your own by yourself. They would have the public defender then make a special appearance.
Oh, okay.
Have an attorney at least by your side.
Oh, okay. So that you're never appearing in court without representation.
Correct.
That makes sense.
Felonies, sometimes on misdemeanors, yes.
But not on felonies.
Not on felonies.
I remember I was years ago. I forget where I was, and there was a friend, and I was trying to go at how the bar to go and where the attorneys, and I was doing it out of ignorance really, and the bailiff said, "Do you have a law degree?" I said no. They said, "Well, you can't come past this bar." I said, "I didn't know. I didn't even know." I was like,
right, that's kind of fence kind of area, right?
And he said that, and I thought, wow. I said, and all I kept thinking was, I wish I could have said yes. But no, I didn't. But it was very to learn that. That's when I learned that. He said the only people can come here is what he said. Are you a plaintiff, a defendant, or an attorney? And that's it. And I said, oh, okay. I just learned something. But I told him I wasn't doing it on purpose. I was doing it because of the person I was there to see. That's all. I learned something. But it's been, I think, for the African American community, unfortunately, courts have been a negative in our community.
I disagree.
It has not been a positive. It's been somewhere that we don't feel that we've been received, that we're not, that we don't receive equal justice. That's the best way I can describe it.
I think for an overall statement, I think that's a very accurate statement to make. It's something we've all worked on very hard to not have that be an issue. Color of one's skin obviously is an issue if you're doing an identification case, as if they're white, dark skin, lighter skin, whatever it may be. That's part of the identification process. But that's something that sometimes we talk about when selecting a jury. Can you put aside any opinions you may have on that and listen only to the evidence? Although I will tell you, there has been some times that a person's dark skin colors actually saved them in a trial because it didn't add up what was being described. And law enforcement got them to be charged with it. But the jury is the one then that said, no.
Yeah, I could see that. I know too.
Never changed by any means.
The DNA plays a big part. That yes. Prior to, wasn't I don't know how many years ago, that was not even an option.
That's correct. And then it became an option, but it wasn't really good DNA testing. That just happened the past few years.
Okay.
So I can't say it was inaccurate necessarily. Sometimes it was. And as it's gotten more sophisticated, they have retested many DNAs, and that's why people have been allowed to walk free.
That's just amazing.
That's so sad.
It is. Because
you don't hear the defendants, those who were falsely accused, you don't hear them complaining because they're so thrilled they were just cleared.
And many of them, their lives have been spent there.
That's right. You're talking 10, 20, 30 years that they spent behind bars.
Wow. But I think somewhere in there, what I've noticed too is that they're not, they don't tend to be negative and they tend to be forgiving. Yes. And I think what I've noticed about when they talk to them, they're humble, that this should have never happened. They realize that they've lived it. And they still they're not angry. They're not
grateful to now be free.
Yeah, that's true. Because they've been saying the whole time they were innocent.
That's correct.
That's what I noticed. A lot of them have said, "I've been saying this since day one. It's not new." But finally, I think it's at the Innocence Project. They've helped
Project
people.
Innocence, yes.
Project
They
Innocence.
help too. And they help to get the DNA developed where it uh, is more reliable than what it used to be. But they also find other facts that people have overlooked or witnesses that were never interviewed.
Wow, I've heard of them though, so I knew that that was.
Project Innocence, I have such respect for them, you wouldn't believe it.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. You see it on TV. It's always, to me, it makes me want to cry when I
Yes.
see that someone's been there all these years and they're innocent and they prove that they're innocent. It's like wow.
And it takes so much time for them to get readjusted into the community. Look at all the things that they were there, say 20, 30 years that we didn't have 20 or 30 years ago.
Nope.
How about cell phones, computer? I mean, there's so many things we didn't have then, and they
Mhm.
have to get used to that in their day in and day out life, that things are just so different.
That's a shock in itself. We live it, and it still is. I mean, every single day I struggle with something with technology. So
Absolutely. I
I
keep
can't
laughing.
imagine.
I grew up on a manual typewriter. You know, it's
Yeah, I did too. I
just
remember typing my papers in college and making one mistake and having to go back and type the entire paper.
yes.
Remember that. That was before you could go in and do, and then just erase. It was anyway.
Yes,
This was
I get it.
the day ago, all those years ago. But I'm glad it's better now. We can do computers and everything. We have some more comments from our audience, and it says, "Oh, Denise." She goes, "Hi, Mary. Hi, Denise." And then we have, and she says, "Thank you, Attorney Blumenthal." This is
Thank
from.
you. This is such an honor for me.
Oh, thank you. It's an honor for us to have you. This is Kelly says, "Best advice: keep your mouth shut."
Yes.
There you go. And then we have Nisi Scott. Hi, Nisi. Nisi says, "Are there criminal cases lost due to public defender being overworked?" That's
Uh, I don't want to say no per se because I know how hard they do work and how hard they are to get their cases covered, and they will bring in more public defenders if they need to. They can hire some more, but I can't say that they do. But it's awful hard to keep going to jury trials back to backers when you're exhausted.
right.
And you get tired just being in a jury trial, that by itself, because it's very stressful, it's very draining, and you're working. And when you're not in the courtroom at that evening, you're preparing for the next day in court.
Right, right. I can't even imagine. I think I have so much respect for attorneys. Period. Um, I really do. Just being able to know the law that you guys know, and it's amazing to me. I know you really. There's so many different areas of law you can work in, and they tend to specialize. Like you have, for instance, like you said, the criminal defense. That this is what you love.
It
Um,
is.
that's where I think when people find that and you become the expert in that area, that's the key. Is what do you
Yes.
love to do? And we have and Kelly says, question for Virginia. How has the criminal justice system changes for better or worse for people of color? And have you had experience that a client of yours was convicted and later exonerated?
I've had one client who was convicted and later exonerated due to the appellate process and finding of more witnesses, not because of DNA per se. I think that up until recently that the criminal justice system has changed and has been much more supportive of people of color. I think the past couple of years that may change a bit because we've had so much of a division in our country that I think it's hurt. We haven't gone back to where we were by any means,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it has hurt us.
Okay. Okay. So but one person that what did is now free that wasn't before.
That's correct.
Okay.
And there are two things that happen with that. One, as the attorney, you feel almost, while you think you did a good job and you did everything you could do at the time, you feel less than adequate because you missed something or they wouldn't have been convicted. I mean, uh, people keep asking me, Virginia, how do you defend those people that you know are guilty? And I keep saying the question I'd rather you ask me is, Virginia, how do you emotionally handle it when someone you know is innocent gets convicted?
Mm-hmm. That is a question. How do you deal with that? I would have
That's a tough
sleepless
one.
nights. I'm serious. I don't think I'd be able to sleep.
Well, there's been 2 to 3 times I almost quit the practice of law because of that. I didn't, but I really thought about it.
Wow. And I think, like I said, you are, because how can you not be emotionally involved in these cases? These are people that you're working closely with to
Yes.
defend them. I don't know how you have
You
to be
still have to keep a certain emotional distance because you got to be fair and objective.
right,
And if you're that close to a person, it's very hard to be fair and objective.
right.
I mean, what do doctors do that lose a patient in surgery?
It's hard. I can't imagine how you guys handle all this stuff. I'm be honest. That's probably why I'm not in it. I don't know. It's
You
like,
just do. You just, I keep saying that's why I could never be a prosecutor because as a prosecutor, you're always after someone. They're going to get you. They want you behind bars. And that's very negative thinking in my book. I would rather be on my side. I am not anti the complaining witness or not out to get them or any of the others. I am pro my client and pro my case. And
right.
to me, that is a much more positive way of thinking and a more positive way of living your life.
Wow. I agree. I definitely agree. I know that was, I mean, I just can't imagine. But you would have to. There's ways. Obviously, people deal with it the way that if they're let's say you're a prosecutor and then you find out one of the people you prosecuted was really innocent, and
They've
they
had rough times with that too because they can't just get the conviction set aside. I mean, it's hard. It's harder to do than what people think. I've seen them do it. That something has come up that they have discovered and said, that they are innocent, and they bring the case back. But it takes the prosecutor, the ones I know that have done it, and there's very few, and I'm not saying that there's very few cases where the facts turned out that way. But it's also difficult for them to admit that because as they're prosecuting, they believe in their mind, no matter how weak the evidence may be, that the accused is guilty.
I would think they would have to do that to do what they do. You have
Yes.
to get somewhere in there. There has to be I believe this person is guilty. Period.
And see, on the defense, you don't have to believe they're innocent. It's just they need to prove them guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
And if you can't do that, guess what? They walk.
That's
That's our law and that's our country, and those are our legal and constitutional rights.
wow. I know too. I saw something that they're trying to, if you're to serve on a jury now, I believe you get, is it $15 a day plus mileage or something like that? Uh,
Right. And they're
and
trying to up that.
I think it's $100 per day.
That I can't tell you. I have not really followed it, but most people don't serve on a jury to get $15 or $100 a day.
Right. It's not. It really is. I don't know that it's the money as it is. Many people. It depends on the person, but
Right.
they're taking off work or that kind. That's what I've heard is that
Yes.
people are saying they didn't want to miss work. So
Correct.
anything else. And we have a comment from Gwen Stringer. Hi, Gwen. Gwen is another supporter of and she's actually a cousin, but she is a strong supporter of the show. So hi, Gwen.
Very good.
And she says, hello, Mary and Mrs.
Hi, Gwen.
Blumenthal. She said, this was really good information.
Terrific.
Well, and I'm asking I'd say any kind of question that comes to my mind, because some of these, I think, if you in audience, if you have any questions, this is an expert in this area. I would definitely have you write those questions in the comment area. I don't know if you can do it on Facebook. I know you can do it on somebody was telling me the Facebook. Sometimes I don't see them, but I do see them when you put them on YouTube. So if you put the questions in there. Tell me, if you can, without using any names, what was the most interesting case for you that you felt?
Oh, there's been a lot of them.
Okay.
It's hard to say one. It's there's been a lot of them. One was a attempted murder case or actually a murder case that I had where a young man who was not a nuclear scientist, he was a teenager in high school, was getting jumped out of a gang. He did not want to be in a gang.
Wow.
And there was a big fight that started to ensue, and someone got shot, and they accused him of murder. Not that he was the shooter, but that he was part of what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
And the jury, it was fascinating. The jury came back and found him not guilty, and he stood up and he was crying, thanking God for that. and he turned his life around, and you would not believe the things that that kid accomplished thereafter. But
Wow.
I've had a lot of really interesting cases.
It sounds like, I mean, I can't even imagine a case like, I know of a case where this is someone I've known, and it came down, I guess, to it was a girlfriend unfortunately said it was a rape situation. And he said it was consensual, and he was looking at life in prison. And it came down to one juror said that they believed him. And that's why he was found innocent. And he said, if it wasn't for that one person, I wouldn't be sitting in front of you
Right.
today. That's what he said. It was that one person, that one juror that said, no, I believe him. Um, so it just tells you, it can come down to that. You know, I don't know what the average is or anything like that. Is it normally
But
unanimous?
most people believe that if you're sitting there as the accused, you did something wrong, or you wouldn't be sitting there. That is the general philosophy of most people.
I think the philosophy is you're guilty, and now you need to prove you're innocent. That's what I think.
Yes.
That's what I'm gonna be honest, and this is from someone who teaches history. That, in my opinion, is what, even though that's not what our Constitution says. You are
Right.
innocent until proven guilty.
I don't care what color your skin is.
Yes,
They feel that about almost all people.
if you're sitting there, there's a
Right.
presumption of guilt.
Right.
That's what I think it is too. I really do. And it's sad to say that, but I'm not saying everybody thinks like that, but that's pretty much how I think a lot of people think. Why would you be sitting there unless you did something? Let me say
You did
that, whatever it is, or you wouldn't be sitting there. And
Right.
then people kind of make a judgment based on that, from that point of view. I don't think people think you're innocent. I think it's the other way around. So that's
No, I
unfortunate.
have to agree. Yes.
Yes, but let's see if there's any other comments from our audience. And audience, I want to thank you for these comments, and anything you have to ask Attorney Blumenthal, you're welcome to do that at this time. And it is Kelly. Kelly says, Virginia, is it true that the Riverside County Prosecutor's Office fears you? Thank you, Kelly. She
I
said, is
don't
that
think they fear me. I think that they do their work before we go across the trial from each other. You better be prepared, because I am. Although I laugh, years ago, my nickname at the Riverside Police Department's roll call used to be Brass Balls Blumenthal. And my my kids would laugh and say, Mom, don't they know you're a wuss? And I keep saying, no, and we're not going to tell them.
Well, I would tell you, I mean, I have heard, and it's pretty much the same thing, Kelly. When they find out that you're going to be, the attorney on the case, there's a sense of, like you said, you better have those I's dotted and those T's crossed.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's a good thing. So thank you for that, Kelly. And then we have Levon says, hi, Mary. Hi, Attorney Blumenthal. Hello. How you doing? And then we have a question that says, it is my understanding that LA County releases mostly all of their arrestees on their own recognizance. Does Riverside County have the same policy?
No. LA County has just recently changed their policy where they're not actually allowing you to set bail. You're either being held without bail or you're being released. Let me tell you what I see some of the problems with that. However, let's assume that you're a person that, while you're not super ultra rich, you have money. Under that kind of a policy, where you could post bail, let's say it would even cost you whatever, but say it was $1 million bail, you could post it. That you would be detained in custody without the ability to post bail. They won't let you. When I've seen some of those things happen, a lot of those people are business owners. So they lose their businesses. All their employees are now unemployed because they didn't allow them to post bail. In other words, don't keep them in custody because they're still innocent till proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt.
Right.
And so LA has just recently changed their policy. Riverside has not gone in that direction yet. They're a little more lenient about the posting of bail than what they used to be, but they have not gone in that direction.
Now, is there something, it hasn't, cash bail, is it changing where you don't have to have a cash bail if it's a certain crime or something like that.
Right, they release you on your own recognizance, and part of LA County is doing that.
But it's not law for the state of California.
Not for the state, not yet, if
Okay.
ever, because there are some downsides to it. It's no, your crime is too heavy. I can't release you on your own recognizance. Let's assume that you're charged with a first-degree residential burglary, or something that's a major felony that, if convicted, you could pull time for. But we're not going to let you bail out. You got to sit in custody instead. Well,
Okay.
that's also not right.
Okay. Because I know I've been hearing bits and pieces about something about cash bail and those that it's either been reduced or non-existent because it has been a deterrent for communities of color. They just having to come up with bail. People have lost their jobs, and the crime was not. Maybe it's I don't know. I'm like that.
Well, and that's where you really need to do an evaluation of
You
everything.
do. You
And
do.
I don't think that because the crime is too serious, you should be denied bail, because then you're going to sit there. You don't want to push your attorney to work too fast on it because you want them to uncover everything
Right.
and investigate everything. Well, that could mean that you're just sitting there, and you lose everything you have. I don't think that if you do happen to have, because you've saved your whole life or whatever, your parents left you some money, I don't think that should be held against you either.
Well, I think it comes down, like it or not, it does come down to money. Everybody, the ones, if you can afford it, let's say the bail, like you said, mentioned about, I've even heard it'll be something on the news, and they'll say the bail is set at $1 million, but they're out. So somebody had the $100,000 to get them out.
Or
So
a bunch of people got together to do it.
that's true. One of the two. And I'm always amazed at that, but but it does happen.
I've had clients charged with murder that were out on $1 million bail, and thank God they worked. It took us 2 years or a year or 2 years to get the case to jury trial. They'd have been sitting in custody the whole time, and they were acquitted.
Wow.
Now, how do you give them back those 2 years of their life?
You can't. You can't. There's no way. There's no way. Wow. So you never know.
No, you don't. And that's the one thing in this business you don't know.
No, it's very much you don't know. And I I think that's without a doubt. We don't know. We have a comment. Oh, here we go. From our executive producer here. Oliver has a comment and he says, hi, Mrs. Blumenthal. Welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us with your wealth of knowledge in your field.
Well, thank you very much, Oliver. I appreciate that. It's my honor and privilege to be here.
Oh, thank you. I guess I said before, taking time out of your busy schedule means a lot. And we have Elaine Wilson. Elaine says, good info. If a defendant feels that their public defender or attorney hasn't really presented all evidence, does the defendant have a recourse with the court?
Okay, whether it's a public defender or the defense attorney, I'm not going to make a differentiation there. It's whoever is defending them doesn't present all the evidence. They have a right of appeal. They can do a motion for a new trial on the basis that not all the evidence was presented. And if they can, one of the arguments you have to make is that if this evidence were presented, then the likelihood of a different verdict is very strong.
Got it.
If all the evidence, one of the evidences they saw you give an eyewitness that saw you shooting the person, no, that's not going to get you another trial.
So basically, you're saying when in the original trials, when you really need to put everything that you need to defend that person on the table.
Well, it could also be that you discovered that either one, you didn't think it was all necessary at the time, or you found out this evidence after the verdict was rendered.
Wow.
We've looked for witnesses and we can't find them anywhere. And the case goes to verdict or whatever, and we find the witness after the verdict's been rendered.
And so you can come back and retry that?
You can file a motion to do it by saying, if this witness had been available to testify, if we could have found him, then we believe that there was a significant likelihood that the verdict would be different.
That's huge.
It is.
Because I've heard of witnesses I don't want to say disappearing, but you can't find them. You don't know if they moved.
They don't want to be involved. They just don't want to be involved.
Exactly. I believe that. That I definitely do believe that they're just like, you know what? I don't want to be testifying to anything.
Right.
that could be. But we also have a comment. This is from Dr. Janet Long. And thank you, Dr. Janet. And she says, "Hi, Mary. Hi, Attorney Blumenthal. How difficult is it to get an expungement?"
It depends on the facts of the case and what the charges are and how long it's been. If you follow all the rules, dot every I and cross every T, and
Mhm.
an expungement, while not easy to get necessarily, is not impossible.
Wow. I've heard that they have expungement clinics, I believe,
Yes,
where they help you.
that's correct. They do. Because that's not something that attorneys normally do because they have to go back so many years. And what you have to charge, it just doesn't seem worth it for an expungement because of the hours you put in.
Okay.
And that's something a defendant can do on their own.
Oh, okay. You don't need an attorney to file
No,
an expungement?
no.
Oh, okay. I didn't even know that. That's something that you know. I know too, um, and I've shared this many times with our community about the lawyer referral service, which is totally separate from what we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
But and then I forgot to add at the beginning. I'm not an attorney. I always need to say that, but I just to make sure everybody's clear on that. I'm not an attorney. That's why we are blessed to have Attorney Blumenthal here to answer these questions. That is a blessing because I do not want to ever give the impression that I am. But there is a service in Riverside County, and if you can correct me, Attorney Blumenthal, it's in all of the 58 counties called the Lawyer Referral Service.
That's correct.
And you can call the Bar Association of those counties. You can, the fee, from my understanding, is less than $100 unless it's gone up. Riverside, I believe, was like 65. I don't know if it is now. That was a few years ago when I used it. And they will give you an appointment for 1 hour with a bar attorney. So this is someone that's a lawyer and they're already practicing that field. And for 1 hour of their time, you can get your questions answered.
That's correct.
Whenever I've used them, I always write my questions down first, ladies and gentlemen. Never go in there thinking you're going to remember because you're not. You're so emotional.
You're on the hot seat.
You're not going to remember. So I always wrote my questions down, and then I just one by one would ask the attorney these questions. And I did that. I've done it a couple of times for different situations. It has been one of the best experiences to sit down with someone that this is their field. They can tell you what it is, yay, nay, whatever the case may be, but you know you're getting the answer from an attorney. You're not just,
yes,
your friend is not answering it, your mom's not answering it. You know, it's not like this is someone who knows what they're talking about. So it's called the Lawyer Referral Service. And
yes,
you just call the Bar Association in California, it's 58 counties. So you can call the Bar Association in that county and you can speak to an attorney. They'll make an appointment with you. Sometimes they're phone appointments, by the way, too. They're not always physical appointments. So because I guess since COVID, now you can do phone appointments or Zoom appointments.
yes.
Another way. Okay, good. I'm glad I got that right. I would hate to be giving bad information. And then we have a question from, Elaine says, can a defendant file an appeal for evidence review himself or herself, or must it be done through an attorney only?
A defendant is called being in pro per. That means you're representing yourself. And a defendant can file an appeal for a review of evidence representing themselves, although I would not recommend it. It's kind of like doing medical surgery on yourself when you're not a doctor and don't have the training. I would always recommend that you would, if possible, because there are appellate attorneys that are appointed to represent defendants too, that are like appellate public defenders, so to speak. So that is possible. But frequently a defendant will file the notice of appeal. In other words, you got to file a notice and then ask the court to appoint them an attorney to represent them on the appeal.
Got it. Good question, Dr. Janet. And she's also a member of National Council of Negro Women. I just thought I'd throw that plug, the shameless plug. And then we have Kelly. Kelly has a question, says, how was your experience as a woman attorney from the time you became an attorney to now? And how have you dealt with the sexism in your profession?
When I first became an attorney 48 years ago, we were called girl attorneys.
Wow, you're
yes.
kidding.
And it was different. I refused to get upset about it because it didn't get me anywhere. I was also the first pregnancy that went through the system here. In those days, pregnant teachers were not allowed to teach in the classroom once they started showing, and that didn't change until the early '80s. I mean, so it's that's to me is not ancient history.
Right.
There was quite a bit of it. I learned not to get upset about it. Sometimes I learned the art about dumbing people. You think I'm dumb? Fine, let's play that game.
Yeah.
Um, but there were various things, and if you're the first to go through any of that, you have a lot that you have to teach the world, and they learn by watching you. And I have been amazed at the number of women who kind of followed me at the beginning, and it made a difference for them, and that just touches my heart when I hear that. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. I'm now the oldest, I think, so it was always something different and something new. And being Jewish, that was also another one that was not really accepted at the time.
Wow. So you
So,
had what they call
quick
it.
story. We're
Mhm.
serving a jury. I was pregnant with my first child, and the DA, and I'm kind of out quite a ways, like 7, 8 months along. And the DA is asking a young man in the back row, and we had an old cranky judge, Judge Schulte, who never cracked a smile on anything. And he asked the young man in the back row, as we're selecting the jury, saying, "Well, as you can see, Miss Blumenthal is obviously pregnant." And the young man goes, "Yeah, but I didn't have anything to do with it."
Oh my
And Judge Schulte started laughing. We had to take a recess because everybody could not quit laughing at what was happening. Now, the jury stayed out probably a day longer because one of the women jurors, okay, came back and they convicted my client of some lessers, not the bigger charges, but the lesser ones. And she had knit me a baby sweater, baby bonnet, and baby shoes that
Oh,
they gave me after they rendered their verdict. So
oh my goodness.
I
So
get to tell stories like that too.
I'm here. Listen, okay, so really, it was looked at. I mean, they made a joke out of it, but nowadays I see pregnant attorney. I mean, I don't. I can't think of any.
No, but the pregnant women pregnant women everywhere are seen in public all the time, including in
Exactly.
the classroom. Keep in mind, those were the days that pregnant women were not allowed to teach in the classroom, assuming they're married even. If they were showing, they could not teach in the classroom. They had to take an unpaid leave of absence.
Wow. Not now. You do that now, like you said. That's against the law
Right.
to do that. Wow. I don't. But I guess too, if you think about the movies we saw growing
Uh-huh.
up, you never saw. I,
No.
I'm trying to think who was a female attorney we saw, because you think about Ironside or Perry Mason,
Mhm.
any of those. I don't think we saw female
No,
attorneys.
there were none.
I just thought about that. So we didn't have examples of, in front of us that females that was a career field.
I laugh for being a semi-traditionalist. I have lived the most non-traditional life.
You have, you really have. I could tell. I know too. I'm looking at our time and tell you why, because it's
Yes.
what happens. Kelly, do you have? Okay. I want to make sure I can get as many questions in, because this is what happens. The system will cut us off. This last question says, "I'm sorry. So a defendant has no recourse if he believes there is evidence that would help his case and his attorney does not agree and does not use the evidence."
No, that's not exactly true. The defendant, if convicted, can file a notice of appeal, have a different attorney, an appellate attorney appointed to represent it, and lay all of that out to him. Cases have been reversed on appeal on the basis of newly discovered evidence or incompetency of counsel
Wow.
because they had the evidence and they did not present it.
Well, I like to first and make sure I do this before, even though Kelly's beat me to it. Not only are you a trailblazer, but thank you, thank you, thank you for
Thank
so
you.
much for being a guest on this show. Thank you for taking time out and your continued support in this community in Riverside. Not only Riverside, but I mean, I'd say California, all over. You're well known throughout this area, or in the area of criminal defense. So we want to thank you for your time. I know, as a trailblazer that you are, we appreciate you, and keep doing what you're doing. I know you. I'm not going to tell the audience how old you are, but I can tell you right now, I couldn't believe it. So
My mother says used to say a woman can tell her age, not her weight.
I like that one.
And I'm going to be 75 next week.
Wow. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And thank you again for coming and being on.
And thank you for the honor of inviting me. I surely appreciate it.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is our show for today. I'd like to thank all of you for coming to the show and being here. Oh, and this is, and the thank yous are coming in, coming in, coming in. But it's exactly 2 o'clock, and we will see you again next week. God bless everyone. Bye bye.